This morning, Emma, Bob, and I will now give three different perspectives on healing without being fixed. When you go to a doctor, do you go to be fixed or healed? Are being healed and fixed the same thing? Fixing is something someone else can do. Since we cannot set our own broken bone or do surgery on ourselves, the doctor becomes the authority and takes on the responsibility for fixing what is wrong with us. However, the doctor is only looking at the part that needs to be fixed. They are not typically concerned with our mind and our spirit. After the doctor has done their job and our body is whole again, we become responsible for integrating our newly fixed body with our mind and our spirit. We are grateful that our body has been fixed, but emotional scars can remain. How do we heal ourselves? We can begin by acknowledging the new us. Set aside time to feel feelings and reflect on the changed body. Grieve the changes. According to Bell Hooks, rarely, if ever, are any of us healed in isolation. Healing is an act of communion. Reach out to others who have gone through similar situations. Look for ways to find comfort and distraction. Many people find healing in meditation, prayer, mindfulness, music, nature, or journaling. Have compassion for yourself. Take time to reflect on what you have learned from your situation. Has it made you stronger, wiser, or more resilient? Let the healing of your mind, body, and spirit propel you in a new, positive direction.
Emotions are tricky things. They sneak up on us and grab our ankles and our hearts when we least expect it, or at least they do for me. One September morning, shortly after my dad died, I noticed a bottle of olive oil on the kitchen counter. I started sobbing because, of course, he had cooked with olive oil, I told my husband. Everyone else I knew did too, but still, ordinary objects around me were now filled with heavy meaning, reminding me that my dad was gone and knocking me off my feet without any warning. When my dad died, I was in the middle of grad school and I just didn't have the time to grieve. I couldn't waste time sobbing at random sports teams and songs playing at the grocery store. I had things to do, papers to write, classes to show up for, places to be. I visited the campus counseling center and talked with a therapist. What can I do? I asked. How can I move on? How can I fix myself? The counselor noted that it had been only 2 weeks. My dad had died so recently, the counselor said. The shock had barely begun to wear off, and it was too soon to start processing. To me, those 2 weeks felt like a lifetime. I couldn't imagine living the rest of my life feeling like this. I called the counseling center and canceled my next appointment. I didn't want to waste time talking with someone who wouldn't fix anything, who couldn't fix anything. The rest of the fall semester was a blur. I felt like a zombie, barely able to concentrate. In January, the counseling center sent me an email. They were starting a grief group. I said I would attend, unsure if joining would fix anything, or if I would leave still feeling broken. The grief group was awkward, full of strangers. I met people who had lost siblings, parents, grandparents. Some were grieving more than one family member. Some described losses from years ago. We shared our stories every week. We talked about how we remembered our loved ones, how our feelings changed as time passed, how grieving is something that never ends. It changes, yes, but you are never quite who you used to be. Sharing my grief with others helped me to feel human again, reminded me that we all suffer and that I was not alone. I felt that while my heart would never be fixed, I was starting to heal. Last week, I went to a blood drive. My name tag was handwritten by an older male volunteer. When I looked at it, my dad's handwriting stared back at me. The volunteer and my dad must have been of the same generation and had similar handwriting. I didn't cry when I noticed. Instead, I took a few moments to remember my dad. Parker Palmer notes that heartbreak comes with a territory called being human. When love and trust fail us, when what once brought meaning goes dry, When a dream drifts out of reach, a devastating disease strikes, or someone precious to us dies, our hearts break and we suffer. But there are two quite different ways for the heart to break. There's the brittle heart that breaks apart into 1,000 shards, a heart that takes us down as it explodes. Then there's the supple heart, the one that breaks open, not apart, growing into greater capacity for the many forms of love. Only the supple heart can hold suffering in a way that opens to new life.
You've heard Eileen's take on illness and Emma's on emotional healing. Mine is aging. Aging is something we all do. As a friend of mine likes to say, it beats the alternative. So what does our theme of healing without being fixed mean through the lens of aging? While we are alive, we are constantly engaged with life. We may mend a broken bone or grieve for a loved one that we've lost. We can't fix aging because every second we're a second older, but we can live while we age. This brings me to the poem, What Happens When We Stop Living by Nathan Walker. The question is not what happens when we die. Nobody really knows. The real question is what happens when we stop living. The stoicism we face on a daily basis is a symptom of a larger illness called duly dulled life. Our lives can be hypnotized by the monotonous commutes, multiplied by the flickering fluorescent light that falls upon the micromanaging boss who thinks everything you do in your cubicle is an extension of his or her power. Who here is dying a slow and numbing death? There is no time to be lulled by monotony. There is no time to be blaming others for our own feelings. If you don't like it, change it. There's no time for crying or complaining or gossiping or clinging to that fashionable grudge bag. No, it is time to wake up, to rise up, and to carry ourselves into a day worth living. Let us live one day, this day, with passion and a sense of collective synergy. Excuse me. Let us live one day, this day, by asking questions that truly challenge us and make us feel alive. For today's question is not what happens when we die, it is what happens when we stop living.